Meantime, we're talking also about cybersecurity again. We were in New York a moment ago talking about how important it is to have Twitter and Facebook and how they're playing a major part in this presidential campaign. Now, from that topic, we're going to stay kind of in the same theme a little bit, going now down the coast, Dave Aitel in Miami, because, of course, when you use Twitter and Facebook, you're using them on your devices, which, of course, can be at issue, potentially security threats. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know, we're talking about a number of things here. We were just talking a moment ago about the importance of the presidential campaign and how Twitter and Facebook are taking, you know, obviously playing a major part in that. Of course, that also, in kind of a roundabout way, involves cybersecurity because, as we're hearing, there's been a lot of people that have had their accounts hacked into here and there. I know we've talked about that topic with you before. What are you seeing? Are you seeing more or hearing more of any kind of security threats involving some of these different platforms as we head towards the political decision in the first part of November?
Well, I think, you know, it's interesting that you note that because last year Obama's campaign was hacked, and afterwards they had to put out a very rushed bid to hire security contractors to come in and try to secure their networks and their systems. And I think there was quite a brouhaha about whether or not sensitive data that later on became, of course, his administration was stolen. So very early on in his administration, he was sensitized to the importance of cybersecurity. And now as we enter this sort of election cycle, the cybersecurity executive order that he may or may not be able to push through this month is one of the things that's in the sort of buzz and feed in the cybersecurity world. So I think it's a very interesting administration when it comes to cybersecurity.
Senate Republicans are urging the president to rethink that executive order. In layman terms, for someone who maybe hasn't followed the topic, what would that mean? What's this whole argument, again, in just layman terms for our viewers?
I think the reason the Republicans are saying to rethink it is because they don't think this is an issue that can be adequately addressed in an executive order. And in most large portions of it, they're completely correct. The liability protection that the basic legislation was supposed to provide can't be done in an executive order. There's just a lot of different, you can't set up a new organization in the executive order the way that the legislation did. And there's a whole ton of things the legislation did that could incentivize people to operate in a certain way that you can't do in an executive order. And McCain has actually been the sort of proponent of sort of backing away from this path and moving toward another legislative path. But the Congress can't seem to get anything passed. And so Obama is saying that, listen, we have to do something. Something is better than nothing. I'm going to pass this executive order, and we're going to see what that does. And that's kind of what you're seeing sort of in the political chicanery right now.
Gotcha. Okay. That helps clarify it up a bit for some people at home who may not realize what's going on. Of course, we see that a lot with bills. I mean, we saw it even with the health care. We have to pass it before we know what's inside it. Sometimes that can pose people on the opposite side to think a little bit more seriously about the issue before you go further with it. Meantime, moving from that topic, I want to talk more about this Chinese company, Chinese telecom company that may be a cyber spy. I know as we go into this, we talked to you about this before and a couple other guests over the course of the last few months about how we're seeing a significant increase in attacks emanating from China, either specifically coming from China or in a roundabout way coming from China. What's going on with this company and how much of a threat is this?
Well, by this company, you mean the largest telecommunications company in the world, which is Huawei.
Exactly.
And
thank you. That's a fair way of putting it.
Well, there's quite a lot going on with it, and that's the thing about it. Huawei is a technology giant and a political mutant in the sense that they're very good at entering the European market, and they've done great work. They have the former CIO of the UK as their global senior vice president and CSO, and he speaks out for them all the time. They're good friends with, the Prime Minister of England, for example. But here in the United States, they've run into what one could describe as stiff headwinds, which is that deep down, the United States government does not trust them. And it's not about trusting the global supply chain. And if you look at what Huawei and ZTE, which is another giant, is saying in this area, they're both saying, hey, everybody builds their equipment in China. That's just the way the world works. And what the Americans are, in this case, saying is, that's not good enough. We know you have been involved in misbehavior in the past. We know you intend to do so in the future, and we're just not going to let you do it here. So it comes down to not trusting the executive chain, to not trusting the company as a whole. We're talking about a company, Huawei here, where the chairman of their board is a former member of the Intelligence Committee in China. Of course, the founder was a former military official in China. They won't say sort of what the rules and regulations put upon Huawei by the Chinese government are. There's no guarantee that they won't engage in systematic espionage, which the United States government knows is something the Chinese are involved with. And in this case, Mike Rogers in particular, who's, of course, in the Intelligence Committee and in the House of Representatives, decided to say no.
One last question for you, Dave. I know the Pentagon has shown some significant concern about this. They've said it's basically providing a launch pad potentially for Chinese and potentially Chinese security threats into the U.S. I mean, it makes it so much easier for them in a lot of respects to have somebody already operating that potentially that broadly right here on our shores.
That's exactly correct. And on the other hand, there is an element of the fact that this is not a Chinese-only issue. Why are we not as worried as with Russian companies and with, Swiss companies and German companies? When you buy all your stuff from Siemens, why are you not worried about them? And I think the big question is going to be, is this just about China, or is this going to be a new level, a new bar we have to apply across the globe to all companies doing business in the United States? We're going to have to say, listen, you have to play by these rules. These are global rules. We're happy to play by them too. And in some cases, that may be a very, very high bar to set.
Right. Dave Aitel, I appreciate your time. I know this, again, for people at home, it's basically about a foreign company owning a U.S. communications system and how that's so much different maybe than in years past with foreign companies coming in and owning, for example, an oil refinery or something of that nature. So it's something that's going to be looked at very closely, of course. We'll continue to follow it. And Dave, will have you on again, I'm sure, talking about this and everything having to do with security. We'll get a lot of good comments from people when you come on, and so we'll make sure we keep bringing you back on and talk about that topic.
Cool.